Mr. President.
Senator from Utah.
Mr. President, I stand today to honor my friend Gary Herbert, governor of the state of Utah for the last 12 years, who after a long career in public service is now embarking on a really well-deserved, hard-earned retirement. He's served in the state of Utah and done so with great enthusiasm and dedication and spirit. And I'm grateful to have worked alongside him throughout his tenure serving our great state. Gary Herbert was born in American Fork, Utah, and grew up in Orem. He served a 2-year mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on the East Coast, and later attended Brigham Young University, my alma mater. He first began his public service in college, serving in the Utah Army National Guard for 6 years, and eventually becoming a staff sergeant. After his time in the National Guard, he set up a real estate firm and was very successful, eventually becoming the president of the Utah Association of Realtors. Also served as president of the Utah Association of Counties, by the way. Starting in 1990, he served as a commissioner on the Utah County Commission. He served there for 14 years, and it was at that point that he began his statewide service within Utah. You see, in 2004, when Jon Huntsman ran for the governor's seat, Gary became his running mate, running alongside Huntsman as his lieutenant governor, with the pair going on to win the race in November. It was then that I first got to know Gary Herbert personally, when I was hired to be Governor Huntsman's general counsel. One of my first memories of Gary Herbert, which to me seems like it was just day before yesterday, occurred when we all began moving into the governor's office suite, just the day before Herbert and Huntsman were sworn into office. Gary came in and provided us all with a warm welcome. But he didn't stop at the welcome. He offered really sound and heartfelt advice about the importance of staying grounded as we were entering the political fray. He explained that long after our service in the Huntsman-Herbert administration had expired, we'd want to be able to look back and be pleased about the relationships that we had formed with each other, but especially the relationships that we had maintained with our families, our children, and God. I soon learned that Governor Herbert, in addition to being wise, and in addition to being a skilled and valuable statesman, was also a formidable athlete. Right after he and Governor Huntsman were sworn in, the staff got together as a team several times in the governor's mansion, where we soon discovered there was a ping pong table in the basement. I then learned the hard way that Governor Herbert's athletic skills, including his ping pong skills, are off the charts. While serving Governor Huntsman, I always found Gary to be friendly, approachable, and always willing to tackle every single assignment with eagerness and poise. Whenever Governor Huntsman's schedule became chaotic or would change unexpectedly, as happens in any governor's office or any senator's office for that matter, particularly at certain times of year, Lieutenant Governor Herbert would routinely be dispatched to speak on Huntsman's behalf, often sending him to remote corners of the state and often at really inconvenient times. He never once complained, and he was not only willing, but he was always eager and happy. He felt fortunate for the opportunity to help. That's the kind of enthusiasm that the people of the state of Utah have benefited from for so long as a result of Gary Herbert's service. You see, he's never lost that. Not during his entire time as lieutenant governor, not during his entire time as governor. You can tell that he is exactly where he wants to be and that he feels privileged and even blessed to be able to serve the people of Utah. Likewise, whenever there was an issue that needed to be addressed by the governor, even within the office or on the Capitol compound, but where the governor was unable to meet with the particular group in question, Gary was always assigned to the case. He would meet with, as he described it, all the different stakeholders. He'd get together the legislators, the county commissioners, the citizens from this or that part of the state, lobbyists, lawyers who may have been involved, in addition to other members of Governor Huntsman's administration. He'd bring them all in together, and he'd wade through all the intricate and often pedestrian details of the matter. You see, he wanted to get to the bottom of the issue. He wanted to understand it. What's more, he had the skill of figuring out the best path forward for all parties involved and for making everyone feel heard and understood. If ever, whenever there was a way to achieve a win-win, Gary found it, and he brought people to it, and they were always grateful as a result. The same traits that I saw in him as lieutenant governor would go on to make him an effective and beloved governor himself. In office now as governor since 2009, Gary Herbert is currently the nation's longest-serving governor. And our state has seen exciting achievement and tremendous prosperity with Governor Herbert at the helm. In the last 8 years, Utah has seen continued steady growth in our economy, with improvement in our GDP, number of jobs, and unemployment rate. We've seen the boom of Silicon Slopes. We celebrated the sesquicentennial of the driving of the Golden Spike, when it was an honor to stand alongside Governor and Mrs. Herbert at that celebratory reenactment. On that particular occasion, Governor Herbert and his wife Jeanette showed their characteristic enthusiasm by arriving in their finest 1869 apparel, just to re-commemorate the moment. And it made all the difference. It made it all feel much more authentic. And so too was it an honor to join Gary when President Trump came to Utah to announce his decision to shrink the Bears Ears National Monument, when we could all stand together and celebrate the fact that someone in Washington had heard our concerns within the state and saw fit to redraw the boundaries in a manner more compatible with local interests and concerns. Through his enthusiasm and his zeal, Gary Herbert has championed our state and the things that we stand for. He's done so very consistently, very enthusiastically. He can rattle off figures and metrics about Utah at the drop of a hat. I'm convinced the man can do it in his sleep and do so infectiously and persuasively. And he's a compelling spokesman for our state's values. His spirit has helped Utah to attract talent and investment, not only from throughout the United States, but from throughout the world, and to make it the good place that it is to live. Not only that, but Gary has been an instrumental partner in supporting initiatives that reflect and strengthen the values of our state. To champion the reclamation of our lands, he signed into law the Utah Transfer of Public Lands Act. He also signed into law innovative criminal justice reforms in Utah. He was at the cutting edge of that movement, making a far-reaching impact across our state, and that ended up having impacts elsewhere. In fact, his work in Utah on criminal justice reform helped pave the way for the work that Congress and President Trump were able to achieve at the federal level through the passage of the First Step Act. He's been a strong supporter of Utah's family culture and was helpful in the Senate's work promoting the child tax credit during our tax reform discussions just 3 years ago. And on a more personal note, Gary Herbert also had the wisdom to put my brother, Tom, on the Utah Supreme Court. In so doing, he's been a champion for textualism, the notion that judges are there to interpret the law based on what the law says, rather than on the basis of what it might have said. For all of his public achievements, Gary is perhaps most proud and always most conscious of and most aware of and most concerned about his own role as a husband, as a father, and as a grandfather. Gary and his wife, Jeanette, have 6 children together, as well as 16 grandchildren, and he's known to encourage them to follow in his footsteps and marry up. In myriad ways, Governor Herbert has been a champion and a spokesman for all that is good about our state. It's been an honor to serve the people of Utah with him, and I wish Governor Herbert and his wife Jeanette all the best as they embark on the next chapter of their lives together. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.